Hi. Are we live?
We are.
We're live. Okay. Ellis, thanks for letting us all know.
I was just going to see,
what we're doing.
how
okay.
it happened.
We're here. It's all happening. So this is our business editor, Dave Flessner. Thanks for joining us. We're talking about the panic at the pumps. Yeah. And we were just out on a gas station in Sunken Mountain Boulevard, the Raceway, and you guys know Ellis Smith, our digital director. So Dave, this is real. Whether or not you like it or not, people are kind of panicking. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the cause and the effect and get into analyzing it.
Well, the Colonial Pipeline, which runs from Houston all the way up to the southeast, carries about 1.3 million gallons a day of gasoline. So that's a vital supply, particularly in the southeast. They discovered a week ago Sunday, September 9th, that the underground cave one of the inspectors noticed a lot of gas fumes and determined there was a huge leak, so the gas pipeline had to be shut down. So Colonial has had to shut off this pipeline. They're trying to build now a temporary fix around the pipeline, but in the interim, these 1.3 million gallons of gasoline a day that would be coming to most of the service stations and throughout the southeast and up the east coast has now been shut off. There's a huge effort to bring trucks delivered gas into the southeast, so both Tennessee and Georgia and even Alabama have the governors there have lifted the ban on how much trucking can go on so that we can make more emergency deliveries. Georgia's also, Governor Deal has also put in a new requirement you can't try to limit gouging that could go on. Question about how much prices will go up now that there's a shortage. But there's certainly, as you saw today, places now where gas stations have been running out of gasoline, and how long it's going to last and how severe it'll get is sort of a function of how quickly they can repair the pipeline, and then how much people panic to a certain extent, because if everybody goes out and fills up their tank, as any kind of hoarding shortage can occur, then suddenly the supply is not adequate for everyone demanding at the same time. So back in the 1970s, I can remember old enough that when there were gas shortages and gas lines, people would not dare get too low in their gas, so everybody's racing to the gas station. Lines got much longer, in part because people were always trying to keep their gas tanks full. You can understand the fear of not having gas. So there may be some of that where people are filling up a lot more, and that may be taxing the system even more.
So this might be an impossible question, but how much of it, how much of any shortage, real or perceived, how much of that is due to, an actual supply issue, and how much of that is due to, everybody just going out and saying, well, I got 3/4 of a tank, but I think I'll top it off just to be on the safe side at a time when maybe they wouldn't have gotten gas. I mean, is there any way to tell?
There really isn't.
Yeah.
Fortunately, this is not coming during the busy summer driving season, so we really couldn't have come.
Or on a holiday weekend.
Or on a holiday weekend or anything like that. So I think, there hasn't been huge shortages yet. I think gas is still available.
Yeah, we saw some down at the Raceway. Yeah.
And it's still below $2 a gallon in most places in Chattanooga. Now, we did see from GasBuddy.com, they do a regular survey, it was up 21 cents per gallon in Chattanooga from where it was a week ago. So we've seen some obvious increase up to $2.15 a gallon just in the last week, another 20 cents or so. In part, I think, in large part, because of the Colonial Pipeline problem. It hasn't risen that much at all in the rest of the country, so it's primarily here in Chattanooga in the southeast and the east coast where we're seeing these shortages. Colonial's trying to fix the problem. New trucks are coming in, and whether people ease up their concerns a bit, but as long as there's shortages and you're seeing gas stations where you can't get delivery, and there's some stations still running out, I suspect it's going to get worse before it gets better.
So, not good news. Concerning your concerns, 100,000 people have viewed our Facebook Live from earlier today here in Chattanooga, and they're saying all sorts of different concerns. For example, Christopher McGraw said, "We don't have shortages," his opinion. "We have people that are greedy and selfish and buying all the fuel that normally feeds this town. Well, congratulations. You will be the ones to blame when the gas is $3 a gallon next week. Idiots."
Well, I've got a counterpoint to that, which, and I took an economics class or two, and these are actually being rational. They're being rational consumers. If you have an expectation that the price on something is going to go up, and you care about money at all, you're going to try to get gas when it's lower. And we have seen, there are people who have lived for any length of time have seen a million of these things. And you've noticed that the gas price does go up. So there's people are behaving rationally in some ways and irrationally in other ways. I think if you're being driven by price,
rationing.
Yeah, if you're being driven by price, I think maybe they're not, and you need gas, then you get gas. But if you're being driven by thinking we're going to have, massive shortages and it's going to be an end of the world scenario where you need to stock up on food and medicine and firearms, in order to survive, and it's not going to be that. It's not going to be anything like that. So if that's why you're stocking up, then yes, that may apply to you.
Brandy Oberg, I hope I'm saying your last name correctly. I hate getting names wrong. She said the only reason I filled up is because I knew the price would get high, and I did. So she said that, and somebody in North Carolina said, Christina Hartline Miller, another last name I hope I got right. I live in North Carolina and no station in my area has gas. It's true. So different areas, and then you have all these people I can see here, our followers in Chattanooga, saying they're giving each other advice on where to go. So people are doing that now too. Like go to this, somebody said a Shell on Jenkins did not have regular, only premium. So they're all talking with each other about what to do about the situation and the different things people do. And then, you always have the people saying about the media, Steve Nixon. And the media is adding fuel to the fear.
Oh, that's good.
Pun intended.
Fuel to the fear. Good
Pun
job.
taken, Steve. Pun taken. What do you think about that?
Well, it is true. I mean, there is a certain
media?
panic atmosphere that goes on, and the more you talk about it, the more people get angst about it, and the more it can feed on itself. There is some truth to that. I think in a week or 10 days at most, this will be largely put behind us.
And beyond that, we'll forgotten about
if the pipeline can be fixed that quickly, and at least temporarily, I think that's probably likely to happen.
So Ellis and I were talking about too about the potential pipeline that's been proposed to run across the country. What do you think about that and how that could affect this kind of situation if it actually comes to fruition?
Well, more pipelines. Some of them are natural gas and some of them are gasoline, so I'm not sure.
It's Keystone Natural Gas, I think. Keystone XL, I think, is natural gas.
But there's abundant supply of gas in the country relative to where we've been. I mean, there's still adequate supplies in a global situation, so there's not an overall worldwide glut or worldwide shortage by any means. But you get these localized shortages when the refinery breaks down in certain parts of the country, or in our case, when the pipeline broke down, and it's real. And everyone, as Alice said quite eloquently, I think is acting rationally in their own self-interest. If you know gas prices are going to go higher, it probably does make sense to buy now versus Tuesday or Wednesday this week. And if you are fearful of running out of supply, it makes sense to buy some now versus waiting. But if you can afford to wait, I think another week or so, the gas prices will probably be back down to where they were before.
Okay.
Yeah, if you don't do a lot of driving, you're going to probably be fine. I mean, to be honest, if you're not going on a big trip.
And there was a woman at the gas station. Her name was Tweety. Hi, Tweety.
Hey.
And her daughter had told her, because she hasn't been looking at the news lately, she admitted, her daughter said, "Mom, you need to get gas," because she was about to go on a trip. So there are people who are doing that, and hopefully, depending on where they're driving through, Georgia, Alabama, able to continue on. So there are definitely circumstances that will affect people driving in the next couple of days.
Chattanooga is a big thoroughfare with a lot of interstates, got a lot of interstate traffic, so there are people traveling great miles, and if you were extensively traveling hundreds of miles today, I can understand the reason for concern.
And then people like Amanda Cox said, I think people panicking is causing the problem. If people would stop panicking, this wouldn't be an issue. So lots of different things on this, and like you said, we've been through this before. We also spoke with someone that was talking about the situation in Katrina, having to drive gas down at the time to her son who was there. So this kind of thing is very small compared to the extent of an ongoing situation like that. So we're not going to hopefully be dealing with anything long term because of this gas situation right now, correct?
And states have price gouging laws, although these are always difficult to enforce and hard to prove.
What is gouging? How do you define it? Who defines it?
By inherently, the supply and demand.
When the price goes high up.
But if you take undue advantage of people and the prices dump to $2 or $3, $3 or $4 or $5 a gallon, I think you'd see some charges. There have been charges even against an East Ridge station a few years ago when there was a hurricane and a shortage. So it has been done. So that's if prices get too out of line, then I think you could see some state enforcement action.
Yeah, and like you said, a lot of different situations, panicking or not, or some other people saying, DeWanna Williams said, "This is a big deal, people. The gas line runs from Texas to New York and broke in Alabama. It's going to take days to make a temporary fix. Then they will have to shut it off in Texas, but put the fix in place, another pipe bypass, broken one. This line is over 50 years old. We need to keep updating this from happening again." So people, it is real. It is happening. They're fixing it. And Dave here, who's covered these stories for years, you think in a week we're going to be past this?
I hope so.
That's
Although the pipeline was built in 1963,
okay.
They're doing at least a temporary fix, and a long-term fix may take a bit longer, to be sure. But hopefully in the next week, gas prices will be back to where they were, and supplies will be adequate again.
Now, we may not know much about this yet, but a couple of people brought up when we went out to the gas station, and we had people bringing up the, what's happening to the environment. As a result of 250,000, 260,000 gallons of fuel leaking into the earth. I mean, has anybody looked at that yet, or is that still?
So Alabama regulators are now, and
Yeah.
it's obviously quite in addition to the consumer impact, it's quite an environmental damage to
That's a lot of gas
Shelby
being-
County down near Birmingham. So.
Yeah, out in the atmosphere.
And into the water.
yeah.
You hope it's not going into people's wells or into the
Exactly.
water.
Underground
into
water supplies.
Yeah.
There's a lot of risk at stake for this.
Yeah.
So we'll have more on that soon if you're concerned about that.
Okay. All right. Thanks. He has to get back to work. A lot going on here in the
Thank you.
newsroom.
Yeah, we're super busy.
Thanks, Dave. We appreciate it. Okay. We're going to move on from the potential panic at the pump. People are panicking to something else very serious as well. Painkillers. In Tennessee, one of the top leading states for opiate abuse. So we've been covering this for years and years and years, and you see the paper Politics of Pain. This was Sunday's paper, correct?
Yes.
Sunday's paper, and we have that on the website too. A big investigation into what's going on here and why. When you hear Tennessee is one of the leading states for this abuse, the question is, well, why? Well, and the politics of pain, you can imagine the word politics. There's money involved. There's drug companies. Yep. There's people abusing them. Let's talk about it. I know you've covered this a little bit more than I have.
Well, at a high level, there's a bunch of things going on. As many of you who read the news know, there's a bit of a problem with prescription painkiller abuse, opioid abuse. We've had a number of pill mills here in Chattanooga. And pill mills, of course, in case you don't know, they're places where you basically have a doctor. Anybody walks in, they say, "Oh, I got this shoulder," and they're like, "Oh, here you go. Have a really hardcore narcotic. Have some OxyContin. Have some whatever." And then they can walk out of there with a pretty good prescription with very little medical treatment actually going on there. And so the feds and the state have shut a lot of those down, but a lot of it's still going on. And so the question is why? How is it? This is an ostensibly regulated, getting prescription medication. You think there's all these rules about it. What's going on? Well, there's a lot of potential answers, one of which that people have come up with is that they're lobbying, right? And so we wanted to find out how much lobbying has actually gone on. Well, according to this story, the prescription medication industry and its allies, there's several nonprofit groups that are set up, and they have spent $880 million, that's almost $1 billion nationwide, from 2006 through 2015. That is, to put that in perspective, that's more than 200 times what their opponents spent, the people who are advocating for more rules for prescription medications.
So they have spent 200 times more pushing drugs potentially than people lobbying against the abuse. 200 times more.
Because they've had some bills, and they've, like in the legislature from time to time, these bills in Georgia and Tennessee and Alabama, these bills will come up where they say, let's put some rules in place just to make sure that the people who need the medicine get the medicine, and then people who are just kind of shopping around because they want to get high are not able or have to have a harder time or jump through more hoops to get medicine. And just in Tennessee alone, politicians got $1.6 million from the opioid industry. Now, it's hard to draw a bright line and say, oh, well, the reason that that we still have this problem is because politicians are in the pocket of the
drug
prescription
makers,
industry.
Pharmaceutical companies.
We don't necessarily know that, but I think it's worth pointing out. A lot of times when you see money, if you follow the money, sometimes that helps you understand a little bit why things might be going a little bit slower.
So that's just a stat that we know this is correct. 1.6 million from opioid industry in 10 years. And just to give you a comparison to some other states, at their peak, doctors in the volunteer state here were writing 143 prescriptions for every 100 Tennesseans, tied with Alabama as the most in the United States.
So we are number one in something, and that is prescription.
Prescriptions
written per person. That's more than one prescription per person.
And that's more than twice the rate in California and New York.
Yeah.
More than twice the rate. So obviously, it's safe to say there's a problem. And it's, getting more into it, it's affecting the consumers and their families. We're talking about drugs like Oxycontin, Vicodin, fentanyl, the narcotic linked in Prince's death. A quote here saying, "My cousin came from Knoxville. He taught me a thing or two. Now I'm headed nowhere but downhill with the Oxycontin blues."
Now, how many lobbyists?
Steve Earle.
How many lobbyists do you think are employed without cheating? How many lobbyists do you think are employed by the industry?
In Tennessee?
Let's say in the United States, because that's the number I have.
In the United States? Wow. Shoot.
Do you think it's
5,000?
It's 1,350 lobbyists.
Oh, gosh, I wouldn't even higher. But
1,350. Now that's
okay.
So how many? So that's 50 states. So I mean, do the math on that. I mean, you've got quite a few.
yeah, I was thinking like
lobbyists.
I was thinking 100 per state. But I guess reading what's going on in Tennessee, how many in Tennessee?
I don't know. I don't remember. But if you pick up a copy of the Chattanooga Times Free Press,
right.
you too, or you can check us out online. We have all these stories online. And we do have a list of how much everybody received. I don't think we put that up yet, but we might. If you guys are interested in that, let me know. I can put that up. And how much our friends here in the Tennessee State Legislature. We even have a cool thing on all the laws that have been passed. Tightening the requirements when they do that, and what year happened there. So it's really neat if you're interested in this stuff and what's going on with the pill mills, prescription medication. It was a huge weekend for that, just a huge spread, a lot of good information, more than I can retain, frankly, which is why we have really talented reporters like Steve Johnson. Couldn't be here to talk about it, but he's working super hard. We're all working really hard today. So anyway, so it's really interesting. I learned a lot from it. You guys should check it out.
And unfortunately, we have some really, really sad news coming out of Bradley County, and the whole Facebook community is talking about this. UTC star wrestler was shot dead in Whitwell fight. It's really super sad.
There was something going on in his front yard.
Yes.
And he went out to break up the fight. And instead of, it was a gentleman fighting with his girlfriend, I believe. And then when the wrestler went out to break up the fight, the perpetrator turned on him. And eventually he attacked him and he fatally shot him.
Right.
Which is horrible because it was in his own front yard. He's got this disturbance going on, and he walks out, I guess, thinking he was going to stop the altercation, and ended up shot and dead. It's really sad.
So the young man, who was a former UTC wrestler, as Ella said, he's been identified by police and autopsy, I'm assuming, as Matthew L. Keller, 33, of Chattanooga. He was fighting with his girlfriend, as you mentioned, and attacked by the homeowner.
He attacked the homeowner, yeah.
And attacked the homeowner, okay. Going a little bit back, people who knew him are saying several remarks, like I mentioned on Facebook. He placed fourth in the NCAA tournament as a senior at UTC, which made him an All-American wrestler. Former Bradley County coach Steve Logston said he was a protege, one of the toughest, most driven, hard-nosed kids I've ever coached. Tribute on Facebook page. The woman he was allegedly fighting with was jailed on charges of public intoxication and trespassing. So
alcohol may have played a role.
Sounds like it, according to what police are reporting.
Yeah.
So everyone, of course, finds horribly, horribly sad. So that's going on. We have a lot of other police investigations going on. Another Bradley County inmate dead, the third this year at that jail.
Yeah, we've had a lot of problems at our jails recently, and we're looking at that. We're trying to figure out what's going on that's causing all this. We've had people die,
overcrowding.
Overcrowding. What's going on. So we'll have more on that for you in the coming days. It's just, as taxpayers, you're paying for these things, and so we feel like you ought to know what's happening and why people are dying, what's going on. So we'll look into that for you, and it's coming here shortly.
Certainly are. So we've had Monday. Some days Mondays consider the word Monday a bad word. And today it's been hard news. It's been the panic at the pumps, the politics of
but
pain. Don't panic, or don't panic at us. We're just telling you what's going on. And now this jail situation. So what I'm trying to get out there is we want to cover some good news this week for you too. So we're going to be looking out for that, and we certainly will have much more, some bad and some good, and all of that coming at you this week. We have a lot of plans. We're covering some preservation going on in Chattanooga. Huge deal for development. We're going to potentially do that tomorrow, unless there's no breaking news going on. And then we have football and all of that good stuff going on too. So stay with us, and we'll see you back at 11.
Don't buy gas unless you really, really need it. Please.
Okay, I'm not. I already have some.
All right, bye.